Spontaneous fires. Hello, this is Keith Linder, December 13th, 2020. If you know this case, if you're familiar with it, if you've read my books, if you've seen my YouTube videos, if you watched these several documentaries, or if you saw the episode that aired twice on Ghost Adventures and once on My Horror Story, you know the incidents associated with this case, particularly um, the fires, what we, myself and Tina, reported to have happened in the house on numerous occasions, the incidents that got the most attention, and rightfully so, were the three Bibles that were caught fire or that did catch fire, or the better term is were burned. And by burned, I mean burnt beyond recognition. Um, One of the things known or not known to everyone is um, the phenomena associated with some, not all, poltergeist cases has to do with the spontaneous fires that erupt inside people's homes. These fires have a uncanny nature about them. They have a inexplicable characteristic. Um, what caught us off guard and what I have no doubt caught others who experienced poltergeist phenomena where fire was reported is the level of ambush you feel when encountering these fires. There are no words that I can really say that can describe waking up in a home and finding your poster on fire, um, or taking a shower and the fire alarms are going off, uh, or waking up to the fire alarm in your house and finding a Bible on the floor outside your bedroom on fire. Um, these things and more happened to me and Tina. We experienced crosses catching on fire. My personal clothing, the clothing that I wore, caught fire. But as you know, um, yes, scripture, Bibles, three of them, two we found were severely burnt. Um, there's no explanation, it's a mystery. Uh, and like I said, the level of horror is sort of hard to describe in the sense of you can never imagine this happening to you until it does. One of the things I plan to uncover or show in this video, and I want the listener or the viewer to know, is these fire incidents have been reported throughout the world. Um, they're not limited to just one continent. They're not limited to just one country. They're not limited to one race of people. They're not limited to one deity. Uh, Religion has no, um, I guess, deciding factor as to what could be behind this phenomena, except to say that in the realm of poltergeist cases, pyro poltergeist incidents or incidents where fire has been reported is extremely rare, with the exception of the most well known documented cases of poltergeist activity. The most, I guess, historical cases, believe it or not, the house occupants did at one point in time experience fire phenomena. It is usually, and I can bear witness to this, the fire phenomena erupts at the apex, at the heightened level of the activity, and it's spontaneous. The fires, um, when they do happen, there seems to be no room that is safe from a possible fire outbreaks. Cases throughout the world, throughout Asia, throughout the Middle East, throughout South America, people are reporting this type of poltergeist inside their home. I want to be very clear about that. This element of poltergeist phenomena is rarely talked about, it's rarely studied, it's rarely looked at. You would never find a ghost hunter in these homes throughout the world. And these type of poltergeists are extremely dangerous. I'm going to say that again. These types of poltergeists are extremely dangerous. Imagine a spirit, a hidden force, an unseen force that throws objects, sharp knives, heavy objects, loud bangs, water puddles, missing objects, shadowy figures. Take all that, and then at the very end of that, throw in a spirit with the ability, with the proclivity of setting fires at will. Some of these fires can erupt on the very clothing that you're wearing. My clothes did catch fire one incident in the Bothell home. That has happened and that is documented in other poltergeist cases. Cases throughout the world where these incidents are being reported speak of a hidden force who, when authorities, when clergy, when religious incidents or religious people or religious institutions arrive on the scene, no one, including the house occupants themselves, in our case, including the fire department, can determine root cause to the fire. The fires, in their very nature, are uncanny. We had moments where the fire could not be extinguished. Tina and I had moments where, when the fire was extinguished, would reignite the second our back was turned. It's like the fire is alive. It's like the fire knows you're standing there. And it's like the fire has a source that's feeding it that most fires, like you and I are experienced with, oxygen, something else seems to be feeding or driving this fire. So this video that you're about to watch, I'm going to talk about and try to shed light on the pyro poltergeist, but I'm also going to shed light on what I believe, what I think could explain how these fires are created. How is the poltergeist creating these fires in the midst of people standing there, in the midst of people being in the home or outside the home? What is the poltergeist doing? What is there that we can't see? What's going on that's hidden from us? That's my purpose for this video, and I hope I bring insight to those who are interested, because to me, this is very important and it sheds a light on the pyro poltergeist. One of the interesting things about poltergeist phenomena that involves uh, cases where fire has been reported is, regardless of the time period, regardless of when and where the incident occurred, you can always find a few cases within cases where the house occupants, the first responders, the clergy, the minister, um, people who respond or descend on a home of poltergeist activity, one of the characteristics or one of the things they notice, which is a characteristic, is people talk about um, how the area where the fire occurred, how you have an object that catches fire, right? An object that catches fire. You would think that the immediate surrounding area where that object caught fire would be severely damaged. Um, that's not always the case. More often than not, a strangeness, a weirdness, if you will, speaks of objects catching fire, but the area which that object is in, the immediate area, is not severely damaged. There's no there's no speak of smoke residue. There's no fire contaminant. The fire, for all intents and purposes, seems to be very localized. We noticed this in the Bothell house with the burnt Bibles, the last two of them, particularly the hallway where the Bible was on the bookshelf, but the bookshelf that it was resting on, the bookshelf above it, were not scorched, were not smoke damaged, were not heat damaged. You could tell from looking at the Bible that the Bible, there was a considerable amount of heat involved. There was a considerable amount of some sort of heat methodology that occurred that should have, damaged the area more than it had done. So that's weird. Poltergeist cases that go back centuries. And you have to look at these cases not one by one. One of the pet peeves I have with researchers is they're reviewing these cases one by one. They're siloed off. You cannot partition poltergeist phenomena. You have to take all the cases that have been reported and look at them very closely, and you'll see, if you do that, the similarities within the cases. There's a common denominator surrounding pyro poltergeists, where objects that catch fire, the area around it, reports of not being severely burned. The fire itself behaves uncharacteristics of normal fire, if that's a word. The fire you and I are used to. There's reports of people extinguishing a fire, and upon extinguishing it, the fire reignites. The first responders example would be the fire department responds to the fire on scene, and root cause cannot be determined. There's no accelerant. There's reports of brown spots, cigar-shaped burnt marks, things that you would associate, a cigar or cigarette burn upon clothing. Cigarette burn applied to a arm of a chair, of a couch, of a love seat, is easily recognizable. Cigarette burns. Majority of fires in homes are the cause of cigarette burns. So the fire department has a good, idea if something involves cigarette burns, because they look at the patterns, they look at the burnt marks, A circular burn mark on an item means some sort of heat methodology was applied. It was very localized that ignited that surface. This especially goes towards people who actually burnt themselves, sometime unfortunately to their death, by falling asleep smoking or something to that effect. But anyway, to the degree that I want to call attention to this video and to my third book, Poltergeist, The Night Side of Physics by Keith Linder, is the pyro poltergeist is a poltergeist within a species of poltergeist. And this pyro poltergeist, certain fires, majority of them, when carried out, speak of two things that a researcher should observe. One is the cigarette or cigar burnt mark, circular brown burnt marks, which is listed in other poltergeist cases, as you can see in this video. And the other is the area, the immediate area where the fire occurred is not severely damaged. These are telltale signs. These are things for an investigator to look at, to exploit, because it means that the fire is being applied locally. It's being channeled, it's being narrowed, it's being focused to a specific target area to generate heat. And that area ignites, and if it's controlled and if it's targeted, then that would explain why the area around it is not burnt or damaged. It's because the heat is very controlled, it's very focused. And when you see burnt marks, round burnt marks, that means something, meaning heat was applied in the shape or near the shape of those burnt marks. And that's very interesting. And I want to talk about that. We're going to go into that deeper in this video momentarily. Thank you. One of the things that sparked or renewed my interest in the spontaneous fires that me and Tina experienced in the Bothell home. There was a point in time where I never really, I never went after the fires. I was always curious, inquisitive about objects thrown, the weird noises, the wall rattings, of course. Objects appearing, voices and shadow figures. But the fires were their own category. I never mentally exercised my intellectual curiosity about the fires as to, the science. What science, if any, is there about the fires? And of course, fire is probably one of the ultimate forms of science. But I never went there. I just felt it was a bridge too far mentally. I felt it was too supernatural. It was too looking in the darkness, if you will. And you go down that road, perhaps forever, to borrow a quote from a favorite movie of mine, forever will it control your destiny. But I had a change of heart. And that change of heart was that night, Dawn and Steve and Patty. Steve and Dawn, of course, come from the UK, and Patty, who lives in the state of Washington near me, who's a friend of both Steve and Dawn, were at the house. And in the middle of Steve and Dawn conducting their investigation, Patty approached me. And Steve and Dawn were preoccupied doing whatever they do, and Patty approached me and she extended out her hand. And I kid you not, she showed me. She said, "Keith, um, I feel a burn. These burn marks. I got burnt marks." It was weird. I didn't really know where to go mentally with it. I was preoccupied mentally on what Stephen Dawn was doing until I looked down and saw on her hand were these burnt marks. And by marks, I mean 3 lines. You know, we're always talking about demonic scratches and poltergeist scratches, you know, the razor thin scratches that people experience, including Tina, several times. But Patty has these blisters, and these blisters are forming on her hand in real time. They're on her, I forgot was the left or right hand, but it's between her forefinger and her thumb. And they're easily detectable. I mean, there are 3 lines, I kid you not, are forming right before our eyes. It's in the process of. It's sort of like when I saw the 3 lines coming down my wall in the living room. I saw the lines get longer and longer as they manifested. You know, rarely do you see something manifest like that in real time. It's rare. But here we are, we see these blisters, and they're forming, and there's 3 of them. Same width and length. Same width, same length. And she was very troubled. She was very troubled, very concerned. But once again, like all poltergeist phenomena, what do you do with that? Where do you go with that? You know, I think the blisters formed 2 inches per line on her hand, and it got all pussy, you know, got all liquidy and whatnot, and it was weird. It was weird, but it was forming in real time. And later, much later, as I'm, you know, moved out the house and I'm researching poltergeist phenomena, and I'm reading about these other cases of poltergeist incidents the world over, all over the world, for centuries, where fire erupted. And the things they're talking about are these localized burns, these fires, these things that seem localized, and nobody can, you know, heads or tails make sense of it. And I began to ponder myself internally as to what was there. Something was there between me and Patty. Something was in the room. We were standing in the kitchen, as you see in the video right here. We were standing near the island. A few minutes after this video, or where Steve and Don, where we're all congregate, and it's just me and Patty there. And something was applying heat. There was heat being applied to Patty's hand in real time. And when I read and researched other cases, I soon realized that there's something here there. There's some there. There is some there in regards to the phenomenon known as pyro poltergeist, and meaning how are they creating these fires? How are these fires getting started? You know, and it's easy to be dismissive, because when Patty showed her hand to Steve and Dawn, they couldn't make heads or tails of it, and they were very dismissive of it. And I was too. It took me to read more poltergeist cases to revisit, and I'm always revisiting. Which, you know, if you need a case to be made about the importance of revisiting evidence or material or people's statements or audio and video, I'm your test case, because I revisited and I dug deep. And, you know, a lot of us, when we think of fire, you know, we think everything has to be real. Everything is real, or everything is not considered real unless we see it with our own eyes. You know, that's just the way our brain works. We respond to stimuli by what we see, smell, hear, or feel. But if something is not of those senses, we disregard it. And by doing so, we assume or make the mistake of categorizing something as not being real. There are plenty of things in this universe that are real that the human eye can't see. And what I'm about to show you is going to support that claim. Thank you. These are technicians, engineers, program managers, product owners. Nobody, and I mean absolutely nobody, could ascertain what these blobs were. More important, what they were doing. Everybody at Microsoft could not explain it. They viewed it as a huge glitch, and it sort of made them nervous that they couldn't explain it, because keep in mind, the reason you beta test and do user acceptance testing with prototypes is to prevent
Hot solids emit a continuous spectrum of photons called a blackbody spectrum. Everything in this room is actually glowing as a blackbody spectrum. You just can't see it at visible light, but you could see it if you switch to infrared light. This is blackbody radiation, but it's been shifted to the infrared, where the peak is. If I want to look at this at visible light, I would have to heat the rod up. I can do that with a torch. Use this torch, and I can start heating the tip of the rod. This will take a couple of minutes, but will slowly get nice and hot. So the metal here should be getting warmer and warmer. We don't see anything at visible light, but in the thermal infrared, it's already started lighting up. Now we'll start seeing a little cherry red glow begin on the rod. As it begins to heat to the point that now the red end of the thermal spectrum is actually getting into visible light, it'll start by glowing red. And pretty soon it will get hot enough to glow in orange. The yellow you see is just some gases and gunk blowing off the rod. And pretty soon it's glowing a really bright, cheery orange. In the thermal infrared, it's probably lighting the entire room up at this point. If I take away the source of heat, it'll start to slowly fade out. We see it going from orange to deeper and deeper red, and as it fades very rapidly as the temperature to the fourth power. Pretty soon, it's barely going to be visible at all. We can just barely see it, even in this room light. But that's in visible light. In infrared, it's probably still glowing like mad. Now we wait a little bit longer. And at this point, unless your eyes are really sharp, I can just see the red glow. It's probably very barely visible on the camera, and now it's pretty much gone. If you didn't know that this was too hot to handle, you could reach out and burn yourself. But in the infrared, if you had infrared eyes, you would know right away this thing is still glowing like mad and will continue to glow like mad for some time as the energy goes away.
When you think about black body or black body radiation, that's not a term many of us, including myself, are familiar with. It was through research that I found the terminology, the definition, and it makes sense to me and hopefully to you by the time this video is over. But we have black body objects in our home, aka appliances. A good example of black body objects, appliances in your home is the hair dryer. The hair dryer, as you know, is in a lot of people's homes. A lot of women use this tool. And what is it doing? It's emitting heat from the nose of something that resembles a toy gun that's coming through the nostril of the tool, and excuse me, you can feel the application, the heat upon your person, upon your hair, which is why your hair dries. I mean, but you can't see that heat, right? But once again, you know it's there by the effects. You know that heat is there by the feel, and ultimately, you know the heat is there by the results. A hair that was once wet is now dry. But if you were to put on some infrared goggles or infrared anything for that matter, and stood in front of a mirror and dried your hair, you would see the invisible heat, the invisible light, as it is called, in the infrared spectrum, descending on your hair. You would see it leave the hair dryer, traverse however many inches you have it away from your hair or your head. And over time, it would dry your hair. So that's interesting. What led me down that road once again was how the blisters on Patty's hand were appearing in real time. These blisters were forming right before our eyes. There's heat involved, there's temperature involved. I'm not a medical doctor, I'm not a nurse, but I'm pretty sure if I researched it, you can find it online, the temperature, the exact temperature it takes for a skin to blister. That's just a scientific fact. It's a constant that we all must face. There's a certain threshold once reached upon the human skin, it will start to blister. And not what was happening with Patty. As you can see in the video here, being demonstrated is a tool similar to a hair dryer. The gentleman is applying heat to various objects to demonstrate that it's the invisible heat, it's the heat that you and I can't see with the naked eye, that is quite effective. Now, some of these examples that he's given are showing is what I believe how the Bibles were burnt. The heat appears localized, it appears focused, and as you can see in the video, the heat is focused on a certain area. That area becomes heated, and I want to look at this example, or several examples in this video, to show that if we were to wear infrared goggles, glasses, whatever, we would see all this in real time, and we would see the heat manifest or expand or grow. And this device, one of the pluses or benefits of it is you can heat devices in your home without setting your fire alarms off. The whole purpose of a device like this is sort of mimics the hair dryer, to where it's keeping the heat localized and pinpointed to one area. Concentrated, the word is concentrated. That's what I'm looking for. Concentrated, and that area becomes burnt, scorched, and nobody's the wiser. Now, to rewind a few minutes back to the video, this video where you saw the floating black orbs, what you saw was what Microsoft saw 2013 when they were in my home, the Xbox team. For a detailed explanation of that, that's in my book, The Bothell Hell House, Part 1, and also explained in detail in my third book, Poltergeist, The Night Side of Physics. Well, the Microsoft team Kinect, which has 2 cameras built in, detected, it wasn't supposed to detect, it was only supposed to detect me, detected floating black masses. Now these black masses, like I said, are black body. We know they're black body because they're invisible to the naked eye, but they're emitting a heat signature. That heat signature was detected by the Xbox Kinect. Here's an example. This is a good example of the toilet paper. As you can see, could be very well be the pages of the Bible. As you can see right here, it could very well be paper. I love this example of how he's burning the toilet paper and he's leaving the heat there. As you can see, if you leave it there long enough, it's going to catch fire. I mean, he's leaving it there 4 minutes tops, and there you go. So imagine that was a Bible or a book. Well, yeah, so going back to Microsoft. So Microsoft picked up these floating, and they couldn't make heads or tails of it. I couldn't. I was very new to the paranormal. This is 2013. The activity has subsided. I was a kid in a candy store because I had both the brand new Xbox and Kinect in my home. But it was weird seeing these floating orbs, and they were orbs, but they were invisible to the naked eye. We couldn't see them with our naked eye. The Xbox Kinect detected movement, and therefore the Microsoft team, the engineers, wrote it down as an anomaly. It was something that they could not explain. So we have to take all the evidence and combine it. And by combining, I mean the old Poltergeist cases, the documented Poltergeist cases, those cases you don't often hear about but are equally important. My case, your case if you had an experience with the Poltergeist, unfortunately, especially if you had fire. And the ones you see in this video or read in this video were fire, and everybody talks about fire starts abruptly. It ignites. There's an inexplicable ignition, like, you know, like Patty's hand. Something is focused on her hand, cooking it. You know, we can use that word. Something is cooking 3 lines on her hand. So that's very important, and that's basically the fundamental of how black body works. It emits a radiation invisible to the detected eye, but can eventually grow, as you saw in the other video, to where it is detected by the naked eye. Fire, you know, but what we often don't see, you and I, is the fire buildup. We always see the after effect, if you will, the crescendo. We never see what built up. And it was weird, you know, if you applied an object like this device or something similar, you would have a Bible burnt on a bookshelf and not the bookshelf itself be burned. And I'm not saying poltergeists are using hardware. No, the poltergeists are the black body. They're not waving hardware around. The poltergeists themselves as a species are the black body, and that's what those black orbs were floating in our kitchen when Microsoft was in my home. Combine that element to objects burning mysteriously, objects catching fire, the immediate area not burnt, and the cigarette burns showing a extreme level of focus and intensity. I think black body and black body radiation is a good contender as to the root cause. When you think of poltergeist and black body radiation, I want you to try to imagine the cases that have been reported regarding fire. Um, Objects are at rest, furniture, couch, bed, love seat, um, other objects, curtains, um, clothing that individuals wear, and books and Bibles, or Bibles and books, are at rest. They look normal, and the reports being reported are they ignite rather suddenly. It's, within an eye blink. You turn around, these objects are on fire. There's no heat source immediately around them, visibly. Keyword is visibly around them. So the head scratcher to the house occupant and to first responders is, how did this fire occur? Well, Exhibit A, black body radiation. You can apply heat through the infrared spectrum, invisible to the naked eye, to a physical surface and do what is called auto-ignition. Auto-ignition is when an object will catch fire once that ignition temperature has been reached. And when that temperature has been reached, that object will catch fire, and it's caused by a black body that's nearby. I say humbly that I believe that black body is a poltergeist. And that's what I've seen in our home, and that's what the information I've read online about other poltergeist cases has led me to believe. Hello, this is Keith Linder. Today is December the 15th, 2020. We are operating out of my second place of residence since moving out of the Bothell home. Current time is 4:41, December 15th, 2020. How's everybody doing? As you can see, as we conduct this experiment, I have several books laid out here. I have several equipment. What this equipment is what you've seen in the video thus far. These are hardware. These are not household appliances. These are hardware equipment, heat guns. And we're going to try an experiment. So, as you are familiar with, this is the Bible, the third Bible that caught fire in the Bothell house. This is that Bible that I was referencing. And as you can see, the pages, the ashes, that's the ashes left over. And this is the third book. This is the book on the bookshelf. This is the book that I found when I came home. And I talked about the concept of auto-ignition, which is the process for which an item will combust, meaning flame on, become flame, become fire, after a certain heat temperature has been reached. Every object, including yourself, myself, have an auto ignition temperature where if you put heat before us, extremely hot heat, we will combust, we will catch on fire. But as you may or may not know, fire is not an instant process. It's a gradual. Heat begins not visible to the naked eye. Heat begins in the invisible, keyword invisible, light spectrum. Everything, and I do mean everything in the universe that has a temperature above 0 degrees radiates heat. These objects that I'm looking at right now, if I was to put infrared goggles on, I would see them in their infrared spectrum. Everything, this room currently, right now, it's about 72 degrees in here. Meaning most of the objects in this room are 72 degrees. When an object becomes heated, that temperature will rise and the infrared will be seen. Since we are not built or born with infrared capability, we cannot see that infrared buildup, that gradual buildup of auto ignition. But it is there, it's present during the infrared and other light spectrums until it reaches a temperature to where it does become visible to the light, our light spectrum, and that's where we see fire, and then that's what makes us respond. If you know anything about motion, well, not motion, but fire detectors, most of them respond to heat, not fire. Heat first. If a level of heat is detected, your fire alarms will go off. Old fire alarms used to respond to fire. We learned by the time a fire has been present, that's usually too late. So we're going to conduct an interesting experiment. We got the original Bible here in its condition. We got 2 other Bibles here. These are Bibles that I bought at Half Price Bookstore. And then we got the heat guns. Heat gun. And we're going to try to just duplicate, mimic, test the theory, because I want you to understand how black body radiation works. Hello everyone, this is Keith Linder. Today is December 15th, 2020. Current time is 4:59. We'll go ahead and say it's 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Okay, what we're going to do here, we're going to try, make sure this is still recording. Yes, it is. Perfect. Got the heat gun. I'm going to try to apply it to the pages here and see what we can get. Down. I need to move that over. Get the flame on. So my theory of how black body radiation works is, minus the noise that you hear, that's the fan, there's heat, invisible heat that transfers onto an object that over time can cause that object to combust, to catch fire, and it's a silent buildup. Don't know how hot this gun can get, but if this gun does not reach the temperature required to ignite paper, this paper, this book, will never incinerate. The auto ignition threshold must be reached for an object to catch fire. I don't have the manual in front of me, so I didn't look to see how hot this gun can get, but according to Fahrenheit, I believe 451, the famous book, the famous movie, 451 degrees Fahrenheit is the theoretical temperature for an object to reach in paper to catch fire, 451 degrees Fahrenheit. Whether this is that, I don't know, but we got the big guy over there. We'll try also. So give us a few minutes just so we can talk this through and give you an idea of a heat gun. So my theory is a poltergeist, they're a poltergeist, right? You got majority of items in your home. It's everything. You know, it's open season for a poltergeist. It's unlimited as to what objects they can mess with. For us, unfortunately, it was 3 Bibles that we had. The poltergeist saw it interesting to go after the Bibles that we openly displayed. So you have these items, and what's being reported is how these items are spontaneously catching fire. And believe it or not, sometime when the person or house occupants are in the room. Of course, I was in the house when the poster caught fire. Me and Tina were in the house when the computer monitors caught fire. I was wearing the clothing, my clothing that caught fire while I was wearing it. So something happened. Something definitely targeted a specific area. And if I was to put on infrared goggles right now, or glasses, or had a flare device, you would see heat leaving this heat gun, and you would see the pages. Let me just see if this page is even getting hot. Oh yeah. So this page is getting pretty hot. Like I said, it has to get to 451 degrees, at least, to catch fire. Now, it's hot. If you had on infrared goggles right now, you would see the pages are hot. But to the naked eye, look at it. It looks normal. To the naked eye, it looks like nothing is happening. But it's hot. I touched it. It's hot, dude. It's too hot. My guess is it's going to cook or brown before it bursts into flame. That's how it's supposed to work. I don't want it to combust totally. I just want to show you gradually how the page can cook, looks normal from the naked eye, but like I said, when I touched it, it was too hot to touch for a long period of time. But she's hot. This is a small heat gun. It's generating a lot of heat. pages is turning a little bit brown. You can see the songs. Once it gets a little bit more brown, I'll turn it off. I'm not really going for the fire effect, obviously, but I just want to show the cooking effect. So you have a black body, this heat gun, applying heat to this book, and you cannot see the heat because the heat is well within the different infrared spectrum or magnetic light spectrum to where you can't see it. But the page is definitely getting cooked. At least the corner of it is right there. And if this gun was hotter, or if I put the nose closer, it would burn quicker. So I only imagine 451 degrees, this is pretty hot. But this is a new book, so it's relative as to how fast or how quickly paper burns. Our Bibles that I had, the one you just saw, was a much older Bible. The paper is much drier. This Bible, believe it or not, still has a lot of H2O in it, a lot of oxygen in it, a lot of water. The pages are much fresher, much newer. Therefore, the temperature to catch it fire is going to be a little bit more higher. The threshold will be. Right. I can smell the pages. Here, let me show you something. So. So that's cooked. That's pretty crispy. That's pretty hot. So this is, just get a good view of that camera. So you can see from the heat gun, Psalms 97:7. You can see that's brown. And the page before it, 8938, not brown. This was cooked by the heat gun. And this is what I mean by black body radiation, where there's a heat being applied that's invisible to the naked eye. Okay? And let's see. So I think I've achieved my objective. I don't want to use the big heat gun. I'm not really trying to get a flame here. I'm really hoping. Here's the other pages underneath. So you see, cooked, brown, 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 brown. You know, still warm, still a little bit brown. Stuff's right there. So about 7 pages all in all were cooked. And then you have our Bible. You have this one, and something similar method was applied. That's what my theory is, I believe happened. Minutes. Okay, we're going to say that in. Hello, everyone. We're back. So we'll close this experiment out. And I wanted to show you, I don't want to use the big giant heat gun to burn pages on these two props that I have that are Bibles. I think you can get the same idea without me setting books on fire in my closed dwelling. That plus the demos and the video that you saw where the guy was experimenting with the same gun and using Coke bottles, Coke cans, ping pong bottles, and golf balls and ping pong balls and all that stuff, etc. Cigarette lighters, you get the idea in that video as he was showing how the heat, when applied, and how it affected those objects. The crux of the theory, or the crux of the story, is Here you have a book. Imagine this is the Bibles in Keith and Tina's home. These are the Bibles that we have displayed openly, and we're going about our everyday, normal day life, right? And this is how the books look like when we walk past them, going about our everyday and everyday life. Then come back, the Bible's like this, okay? Goes from this to this. Somewhere between this and this happened. Heat was applied. Heat was applied. If we look at the pages, in an even distribution methodology, heat was applied in almost like an equilibrium spread out on the pages. Now, some of the pages, not all, but some, suggest that the burnt began on the corners. A lot of these pages are pretty badly consumed, but the second Bible, which you'll have to look in closer in the video and look closer in the book, Poltergeist, The Night Side of Physics by Keith Linder, and you'll see that the edges were burnt, and that suggests targeting. Either way, what you have is a object normal, not normal. Normal condition, not normal condition. So what happened? Well, what happened was you had a heat object, and I'm telling you, my theory is you have a poltergeist. You have a poltergeist with the ability, the proclivity, a penchant for setting fires, okay? Now imagine this poltergeist is this gun, hypothetically. So the poltergeist is walking around the house. The gun represents the poltergeist. Objects it wants to catch on fire, coffee machine, napkins, The poltergeist is in the home of the individual, and things are catching fire. Chair caught fire. That's a horrible experience, wouldn't you agree? That's horrible. It's unexplainable. What the fuck is going on? And wall catching fire. These are things catching fire, sort of like the poster catching fire. This is just sitting here minding its own business. There's no heat source around it. It's just a wall. There's no reason why, or common sense wise, why this poster or this picture frame should catch fire. But enters the poltergeist, who throws its energy, its black body radiation, and sets the object on fire. Okay? You start walking around again. The poltergeist is in the home. Okay? And it's just looking for areas to ignite. All right? It's looking for areas to ignite. And the people living in the home are at their wits' end because they don't know what the hell is happening. Why are items catching fire all around them? Okay? Clothing, personal clothing catching fire. It's because there's a poltergeist. A poltergeist. Now, the poltergeist is not walking around with a heat gun. Don't think that. The poltergeist is not walking around with a heat gun. The poltergeist is the heat gun. I want to be clear. The poltergeist is the heat gun. Only thing it's doing is energy. Heat is energy. Black body, heat, radiation, object ignites. Once it reaches that ignition, auto ignition threshold, that item will catch fire. And the house occupant, the first responders, everyone is unaware. Okay? The root cause cannot be determined because the poltergeist, the heat is gone. Gone. All you have left is a burnt Bible, a burnt poster. Everything else is gone. And the fire is labeled unknown cause. Thank you very much.